In early spring of 2024, in the small, quiet town of Brooksville, nestled between fields and small-town charm, life appeared simple, unhurried, and full of secrets. For Lily, a young woman trying to piece together her life after her mother's death, things were supposed to settle into a peaceful routine when she moved in with her cousin's family. But a storm was brewing, and this peaceful town would soon become the backdrop of a family's ultimate betrayal. Brooksville, with its tree-lined streets and idyllic homes, had always felt like a place where time slowed down. It was the kind of town where neighbors greeted each other with a smile, where everyone knew everyone else's business, or so it seemed. But behind closed doors there were things left unsaid, feelings left unspoken. For Lily, that reality would soon come crashing down. Her mother's sudden passing had left a void, a silence in Lily's heart that nothing could fill. Moving to Brooksville, staying with her cousin's family, seemed like the answer to her grief. It promised new beginnings, a chance to find herself again. But what she didn't know was that sometimes, in the midst of healing, life presents you with a truth that's too painful to bear, a truth that can unravel everything you've ever known. Lily had always been the type to blend into the background. She had a quiet beauty about her, soft features and eyes that held stories she never shared. Her mother had been her world, and now that she was gone, Lily felt like a piece of her soul was missing. For a time, the small town of Brooksville seemed to offer her some peace, but peace was fleeting. Lily had come to Brooksville after the tragic passing of her mother. At 28, she was trying to find herself again, grappling with the loss that had turned her world upside down. The bustling city life she'd known in New York, the comforting presence of her mother, and the warmth of a family that had once felt unbreakable were now gone. Grief had a way of stealing clarity, leaving behind a haze of confusion and loneliness. Her cousin, Jenna, a loving and caring woman, had offered her a refuge in this small, quiet town. Jenna's invitation to live with her family seemed like the perfect opportunity for Lily to heal, to find some peace in a place where time seemed to move slower. Jenna's life, a picture-perfect suburban dream, was everything Lily could have hoped for. With her husband Nathan, a charming man with a way of making everyone feel at ease, and their two children, Lily felt like she might finally find a semblance of stability. The first few months in Brooksville passed in a haze of grief and routine. Lily, still unable to shake the ache of losing her mother, found solace in the small things, helping Jenna with housework, playing with her children, and finding comfort in the sense of family that Jenna so freely offered. It was a quiet life, one where the weight of grief could be buried beneath the daily tasks of home life, but what started as a refuge would soon become a prison of betrayal, a prison Lily never saw coming. Jenna adored Nathan, and why wouldn't she? He was everything a husband should be, attentive, loving, always ready to lend a hand. His charm was effortless, and in a town like Brooksville, it was no surprise that everyone took to him. He knew how to make people feel important, how to listen with sincerity, how to laugh at just the right moment. Even Lily, lost in her own sorrow, thought little of Nathan at first. He was the ideal husband in her eyes, a good man who took care of his family. But as the days wore on, something began to stir inside Lily. Nathan's attentiveness, once appreciated, now began to make her uneasy. His smile lingered a little longer when he looked at her, his gaze somehow deeper, more intense. And though she tried to dismiss it, her heart fluttered unexpectedly when their eyes met. It was a feeling she couldn't explain, one she didn't want to, but it was there, unspoken, undeniable, and dangerous. Nathan had always been charming, but there was a difference now. He no longer just checked in on family matters. He checked in with Lily. His visits, once casual and brief, began to carry an unspoken weight. The moments they spent together, discussing trivial things, sharing small glances, felt heavier than they should. And Lily, overwhelmed with grief, couldn't explain why she felt the pull. She couldn't explain why, despite her best intentions, her heart raced every time Nathan entered the room. The glances between them became more frequent, more intense. Lily tried to ignore it, convincing herself it was just her grief playing tricks on her. But deep down, she knew. The attraction was real, and it was pulling her into dangerous territory. Each touch, each shared moment, left her questioning what was happening between them. Was it just loneliness? Or was something else at play, something more powerful than she could control? Lily had been searching for answers, searching for something to hold on to after her mother's death. But in the quiet moments with Nathan, in the unspoken exchanges that grew between them, she found herself lost in a web of confusion and longing. She knew it was wrong, but the pull was too strong. And what began as innocent interactions, helping with the housework, sharing coffee in the mornings, soon became the source of a much deeper turmoil. What started as innocent gestures quickly turned into something else. Nathan's presence became an anchor for Lily's lonely heart. She was still mourning her mother's death, and in the quiet moments of her grief, Nathan seemed to provide a form of comfort that no one else could. It wasn't intentional, not at first, but as the days went on, Lily began to notice the little things, the way he lingered when he spoke to her, the warmth in his smile, the subtle way his hand brushed against hers when they were near. It was in the smallest of moments, a lingering touch, a brief glance, a word spoken in a tone that held a deeper meaning. But what frightened Lily most was that she couldn't stop herself from feeling something in return. Nathan's visits became more frequent, more personal. When Jenna was out running errands or working late, it was always Nathan who showed up. And Lily, despite herself, welcomed his company. There was something comforting about the way he looked at her, something that made her feel seen, truly seen for the first time since her mother had passed. But as the days turned into weeks, Lily began to feel the growing weight of what was happening. She knew she should feel guilty. She knew she should stop it before it went any further. But each time Nathan's eyes softened as he spoke, each time his hand grazed hers as they passed by one another, she found herself drawn to him more and more. It wasn't just the physical proximity that made Lily's heart race. It was the way Nathan made her feel. He was everything her life in Brooksville had been missing. He was the excitement, the unpredictability, the warmth that her grief had left behind. He wasn't just a man. He was the spark that she didn't know she was yearning for. But as the days passed, the tension between them grew, subtle touches in passing, lingering glances in shared moments, conversations that felt more intimate than they should. Every time she spoke with him, it felt like they were playing with fire, and Lily knew that eventually someone would get burned. As the days passed, Lily found herself trapped in a growing web of desire and guilt, unable to break free. Every moment with Nathan felt like a step further into dangerous territory. But the pull was undeniable. And with every lingering touch, every glance that held a secret, Lily was falling deeper into a world she knew she should avoid. But everything changed one fateful night. It wasn't an overt move, but a quiet one. A simple act that would unravel everything. Lily had walked into the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the room. The air was thick with the weight of unspoken thoughts, and as she crossed the threshold, her gaze fell on something that would haunt her forever. Nathan and Jenna's old photos framed moments of a love that had once been. They were scattered across the table, a reminder of a family that was supposed to stay intact, but now all of it felt like a distant memory. She paused, her fingers grazing over the edges of the worn frames. They didn't belong here, not like this. Her heart beat faster, a knot tightening in her stomach as she realized that things were no longer as they seemed. And as her mind raced with confusion and guilt, she heard a voice, a soft murmur coming from behind her. Nathan's voice, low and steady, broke the silence. It was casual, almost too casual for the situation at hand. They talked, exchanged pleasantries, but the words felt like a barrier between them, keeping the truth hidden just beneath the surface. Yet, in that moment, Lily's breath caught. Nathan's presence had always been comforting, a subtle support in the wake of her grief. But now, as she looked at him, something felt different. Something was shifting between them, and it was impossible to ignore. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. There was supposed to be time. There were supposed to be boundaries, rules. But sometimes the pull of something forbidden is too strong to resist. Nathan, always the perfect husband, the man of strength and charm.
He was no longer the figure she had trusted. Now he was something more, something impossible to ignore. He stepped closer to her, his hand brushing against her arm as he passed. The small gesture, the quiet intimacy in the room, made her heart race. And then, before Lily could fully comprehend what was happening, Nathan reached out to her. His hand cupped her face gently, tilting it up so that their eyes met, his expression darkening, pulling her into something deeper. And then it happened. The kiss. It started slow, almost tender, like a question. A simple touch of his lips to hers, testing the waters. But the moment their lips met, everything shifted. The kiss was more than just an act. It was a storm. A wave of emotions, long suppressed, came crashing to the surface, and in that single breath, every part of her screamed to stop, but she didn't. Neither of them did. As the kiss deepened, something dark and powerful surged between them. It was not love. It was something far more dangerous, something neither of them had expected to find. It was a kiss that crossed a line that, once crossed, could never be uncrossed. There was no going back from this. They knew it. Lily could feel it in the pit of her stomach, that cold realization. This was betrayal. And yet, even as she tried to pull away, Nathan held her tight. His grip was firm, desperate, as if he, too, knew that they had gone too far. He whispered her name, his voice raw, as if asking for permission to keep going. But Lily, heart pounding, had already made her decision. She pulled away, gasping for air, her body trembling with conflicting emotions. She stepped back, her hands shaking, but Nathan didn't let go. Not yet. But the biggest secret, the one she was too scared to face, was still out there. The truth that had been lurking in the background of everything, hidden in the quiet moments, in the shared glances, in the moments of desire that neither of them could fully acknowledge. And as Lily backed away from Nathan, her mind raced. What had she just done? What had they just crossed into? There were consequences, undeniable ones, and the guilt was eating her alive. But deep down, she couldn't deny the truth, the pull she had felt toward Nathan. The attraction that had taken root in her heart had been there all along. And now there was no way to erase it. Jenna had planned a quick getaway to visit a friend in a nearby city, leaving her husband Nathan and cousin Lily at home. It was a rare opportunity for Lily, who had been grieving and adjusting to life. After her mother's death, to spend some time out of the house. What seemed like a small chance to relax and clear her mind would, however, become the backdrop for a moment that would change everything. With Jenna gone for 2 days, Nathan and Lily found themselves alone. The house, once full of energy, now felt eerily still. Nathan, ever the charming figure, suggested they go for a drive to get some fresh air, something to take their minds off the quiet loneliness that had settled in. Though the drive began innocently, there was an unspoken tension between them. The time alone, the quiet, created an opening for thoughts and feelings that had been suppressed to surface. What started as a simple outing became a moment where everything changed. The hours together grew longer, their conversations deeper, and before long, the boundaries between family and something more began to blur. It wasn't planned, but the space, the quiet, the absence of anyone else around allowed emotions to take over. That night, they shared a connection that neither could take back. In the early morning hours, as the rain began to fall, it felt like the world had slowed down, quiet and yet filled with unspoken understanding. By the time they returned home, the world felt different. The shared moments, the secrecy of it all, weighed heavily on both of them. But neither could deny that something had changed, something they couldn't ignore or undo. When Jenna returned, she felt something was off. At first, it was subtle, a distance, a change in the air. But when she saw the messages on Lily's phone, there was no denying what had happened. The quiet whispers of doubt she had pushed away now stood stark before her. Her heart broke with the realization. Her trust had been shattered. Jenna's worst fear had come to life. The connection she had once believed to be unbreakable, the trust she had placed in those closest to her, was now crumbling. Her cousin, the woman she had taken in, loved and supported, had betrayed her, and in that betrayal, something far darker than she could have ever imagined had taken root. But it wasn't until one evening when Jenna, ever observant, caught wind of what had been happening. Jenna had always been the type to sense when something was wrong. Perhaps it was a mother's intuition, or the bond of a woman who had lived through enough to recognize when things weren't as they seemed. After months of suspicions and strange behaviors, Jenna had enough. She had noticed the late-night talks, the lingering glances between her cousin and her husband. It was impossible to ignore any longer. One evening, driven by a mix of concern and curiosity, Jenna decided to follow them. It wasn't something she had planned, but the unsettling feeling had become too strong to ignore. She trailed them from a distance, unnoticed, her heart racing with every step. They didn't know. She was watching, and at that moment, Jenna didn't know if she truly wanted to know the truth. The further they went, the more her anxiety grew. They stopped at a secluded spot near the edge of town, a place she had never seen them go before. A quiet place, surrounded by the thick shadows of trees where no one could see or hear. Jenna remained hidden in the distance, her heart pounding as she watched the two of them interact. The tension between them was undeniable, and her worst fears began to take shape. In that moment, Jenna knew. She didn't need to see any more to understand the depth of the betrayal. It was more than just suspicion. It was a confirmation of the emotions she had been trying to push aside. What had been brewing between them was no longer hidden. It was out in the open, and it threatened to destroy everything she had built with her family. Jenna didn't know what to do. The weight of it all, her cousin, her husband, her life, felt like it was crumbling around her. She wanted to confront them right there, to shout, to demand answers, but she didn't. Instead, she turned and walked away, her mind a swirl of confusion, pain, and anger. She needed space, needed time to think, to process what she had seen. The truth always finds a way to surface, no matter how deeply it's buried. For Jenna, that truth came in the form of a phone, a seemingly innocent device that would turn her life upside down. It wasn't a grand gesture or a confession. It was a simple text message that shattered the delicate veneer of her family's happiness. It wasn't something Jenna had planned to do, but there it was, an incoming message from Lily, her cousin, to Nathan. The words at first seemed innocuous, a reminder to pick up some groceries, but as Jenna scrolled down, her heart began to race. There was something more in their exchange, a tone, a familiarity that didn't belong, and then she saw it. A message from Lily. "I can't stop thinking about you. Last night was incredible. We need to do it again." The ground beneath Jenna seemed to shift. The room felt suddenly too small, too tight. Her mind raced as she read and reread the messages, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her chest. It wasn't just that Nathan had crossed a line, it was the fact that it had been her own cousin, someone she had loved like a sister, who had helped him cross it. Everything about the life she had built felt like a lie. The life she had with Nathan, the marriage she thought was based on trust, now felt like a carefully constructed illusion. But the hardest part was the betrayal from Lily, the woman who had stayed with her family during times of grief, the woman who had helped her with every hardship, now had a hand in shattering that same family. Jenna's heart ached with the realization that the person she had trusted most had betrayed her in the most intimate of ways. As she sat there, overwhelmed by the weight of what she had just uncovered, she knew what she had to do. She couldn't let this continue. She couldn't let them both destroy everything she had worked for. With a heavy heart, she confronted Nathan first. The house seemed eerily quiet as she stepped into the living room, phone in hand. The words, when they finally came, felt foreign, almost unrecognizable. "What is this?" she asked, her voice strained with hurt. Nathan's face faltered. He tried to mask his guilt with a sheepish smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's not what you think," he started. But the words fell flat, meaningless in the face of the evidence Jenna held in her hands. "Don't," Jenna whispered. "Don't lie to me. Not now, not when I can see it all." Her voice broke. The man she had loved, the man she had given herself to, had betrayed her with the one person who had been family. She didn't need him to explain any further. She could see the truth in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said weakly, but it was too late. The damage was done. The apology meant nothing in the face of the betrayal. As the evening wore on, Jenna couldn't escape the feeling of being trapped by her own emotions, trapped by the family she had built, trapped by a lie that had lived beneath the surface for far too long. And then it was time to confront Lily. Lily's face, usually so warm, was now filled with guilt. She had no words left, no explanation that would make this right. "Why?" Jenna's voice cracked. "Why would you do this to me? To us?" Lily's eyes welled up with tears. She reached for Jenna, but Jenna pulled away. The bond they once shared was broken, and no amount of apology would ever heal the wound. Lily couldn't explain why it had happened. She was caught in a web of emotions, guilt, confusion, and an inexplicable pull toward Nathan, but all of that seemed meaningless in the wake of the devastation she had caused. The guilt, the regret, it weighed heavily on her, but Jenna couldn't afford to hear it. Jenna was done with the lies, done with the betrayal. Her world was crumbling, and she knew there was no going back. Jenna left. She couldn't stay in the house with Nathan, couldn't live in a place that had once been her home. Her heart, once full of love and trust, now felt hollow. She packed her things and left, walking away from the life she had known, the man she had loved, and the family she had built. There was no coming back from this, not for her, not for Nathan, and certainly not for Lily. Lily, now alone in the aftermath of everything, felt the weight of her choices. The man she had betrayed her cousin for had only left her with emptiness. The love she had felt for him now seemed hollow. a distant memory tainted by guilt. And, as the days passed, Lily knew that she could never go back to the life she once had. She had lost it all. And Nathan, he was left with nothing but the aftermath of his own manipulations. His life, once filled with promises and possibilities, was now reduced to a series of broken relationships, lies, and regret. What had he gained? A brief moment of pleasure at the cost of everything he held dear. Was it worth it? Could he ever truly make amends for what he had done? The price of desire, of secrets kept too long, is one that none can escape. And in the end, the question remains, was it all worth it? Could love ever have survived such betrayal? Or was it doomed from the very start?